A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to the first technical session, or what we named it, something like role of business intelligence in decision making. I have 5 wonderful panel members with me currently. So all of us, we make it. So a big thank you to all of you. Yeah. So on my right side, I have Dr. Disha Shah. She has a total experience of over 12 years with a rich corporate experience of over 8 years with industry stalwarts like IL and FS and HSBC. She is currently into academics from NMIMS, Mumbai University. And Aditya Institute of AIMSR. To my left, it starts with Shukiran. Shukiran prefers to brand himself as a risk analytics professional. So we will learn about it. What is that? What is a risk, and what is the task of a risk analytics professional? So his passion is taking analytics to a non-traditional and underserved areas. He was instrumental in creating the centralized credit risk modeling, operations analysis, HR analytics, a very bright graduate from Indian Statistical Institute. And next I have Jatin. Welcome. So Jatin Singh, founder and CEO of SkyMet Weather Services Private Limited. I was amazed to see that there exists a company that actually works with climate data. And Jatin founded India's private sector initiative in weather forecasting and information services in 2003. It's about 15 years now. The company provides weather solutions for sectors as varied as energy, distribution and renewable, shipping, agriculture, and so on. Then we have Mr. Shankar Jadhav, as you just got to know that he is now spearheading the movement, if we can say this term, movement for Bombay Stock Exchange, the oldest one of our country, and I just got to know it's 140 years. 144 years. Wow, great. Mr. Shankar Jadhav also leads the legal, commercial, corporate marketing, communications, CSR and infrastructures on BSE. He was previously on the board of Bank of India, Shareholding Limited, and have touched a lot of milestones in his illustrious, a career. And Shankar is a BTech from IIT Mumbai, IIT Bombay, we say, and MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. And finally, we have another professor with us, Professor Dr. Shamim S. Mondal. He is a professor of economics at NMIMS Mumbai, an economics doctorate from University of Rochester, USA, has interest in labor economics, financial markets, and that is why he is here, and corporate governance and macroeconomics. It's a great pleasure to talk with you all. So welcome you all again. Thank you. Right from the very beginning, when I was told that I have to moderate a panel of this merit, as you see, I was just very curious, like many of you might be, to understand what this thing is actually, because the topic of this session is business intelligence in decision making. Well, business, I understand, I can't say I understand, but I heard that term since childhood days, and he has a businessman, business person, yeah. And intelligence, yes, intelligence in isolation, I have some idea what it is. So in isolation, business and intelligence make a lot of sense to me. But now they are telling about business intelligence. So I'm just wondering if we can quickly get some idea about what it is eventually or actually, and what's their take, what's our take. So maybe I can start with Disha.
Good morning, everybody. So business intelligence, like he said, are two old words which we have used separately forever. And now suddenly that he's scared of, we're using it all together. But in very layman terms, and we've been doing it together for really long, I think everybody on the panel will agree, the term maybe is coined lately, but we've been using it in some form or the other. So when I was in corporate and when we were back old days, we used to use Excel and use, for example, if I were to look at the NBFC business model, and if I wanted to judge what is the productivity of, or how good is my business going, and what is the risk sectors and which areas are putting in more effort, or which sectors are putting in more effort towards producing or getting higher results, I would again go back to the Excel and punch in numbers of what scripts they have loaned against, and how soon they do a turnover of the scripts, and how soon they change things, and how soon is their return pattern. So we used to do this all on Excel, but now it's become a lot more easier. Data just goes in. You don't need to maybe a doctorate or professor with stats in detail knowledge, or Excel expert, as they say, the scary words. And now you have a lot of other softwares that will just calculate and put it in your strategies, and you'll get into your data as the way you want, with the different layers and layers added on, with how much ever specialization or micro specialization that you look at, or you want to feel and look at. So that would be my take on one of the examples that we could take. I would like to know if someone has anything to add on.
Shukiran, would you like to?
Hello, good morning. In fact, if we spend on definition, we are going to spend, I think, the entire session talking about what it is not. I would rather point out two aspects of business intelligence. One is where it's going, because it's ever-changing and evolving. Initially, what we used to think Excel or any other sort of tabular form of representation, some exposition of numbers as BI, what I see is that it is the intelligence, that's the key word, and that becomes over time very complex, but without losing the trust from the user. And the reason I say that is traditional BI used to have descriptive statistics. More and more, what we are going to see in the same BI exposition, we are going to see a lot of embedded AI or decision science things. And the user who is using that particular dashboard still trusts the system. I'll take one example. Let's say I'm looking at a banking corporate book and have a set of borrowers, and with them I have the credit rating. Initially, possibly I was just looking at the risk distribution, just looking at what is happening, just description. User definitely trusts it because it's very simple. But after some time, I also added one extra piece of information, which is about whether this particular corporate is going to default in sort of 18 months to 24 months horizon, right? That is still BI, but what has now gone in is that embedded through the use of AI or machine learning techniques, something which ultimately gives rise to a probability of default or something.
Okay. So, I mean, and there is a trust factor.
There is a trust factor, and I'll take the same example. Let's say you take this further. You are actually putting some, flag against each of the corporate. Now, after some time, the user, the decision maker who is using it, obviously would try to validate what is being said is correct or not. And if it so happens that whatever the BI system is saying, it is not actually gelling with the reality or the actual high quality judgment of the individual, after some time, the person loses trust. That's why I say that trust is a key element of any business intelligence. Otherwise, we collectively as a community, I think we're going to lose the game. And that's what I want to point out.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Shukiran. I just would like to, before you start, may I just take this liberty to ask Shamim that taking this cue of this trust, do you feel that this is intact, or whether some element of compromise, or do you see anything there, or something?
All right. So, am I audible? All right. Thank you. So I think obviously both of them have defined in things in some way, Now, the issue is this, that if we actually take what is BINA, it has actually gone through several iterations, right? So in the first phase, we had something like what was focused data management and warehousing. At that point, you had, like what she talked about, Excel spreadsheets. It's a very structured data. Now, in the second phase of BINA, let's call it 2.0, right? So that starts about something from 2004 onwards or something like that. Now we have got something like Web 2.0, which basically now makes it a two-way conversation. So in other words, as users, we are putting up our own information on the web. Traditionally, let's say you think about a discipline like marketing, right? So what is marketing? Essentially, it's giving consumers information, and that's a one-way communication. Now it's becoming a sort of a two-way communication, right? So obviously, there are great benefits to it. Like now today, for instance, with 3.0, you now have mobile, like technology and things like that. So that's really the evolution. Now, with Internet of Things, we are generating from our own activities tons and tons of data, which are, so obviously, you have these recent examples where somebody is actually simply tweeting that I don't really like my service. The company has somebody who is dedicated, who is, obviously tending to that particular service, right? Now, given the fact that we are actually putting up so much of our information, right? One concern could be that, well, how much is too much, right? What can that data be truly used for? So, there are certain examples which hopefully I will actually come back later on. But, one thing is that there was recently a great success story, at least in the United States, where, a 30-year-old crime problem called the Golden State Killer was somebody who was caught. But the reason why that person could be caught was because there was some data that was, DNA data that was there, right? The police uploaded that data onto a, open source website, and then found some DNA matches, and then from there found out who the next of kin would be. Then based on some age and other, information that they could collect, actually zeroed in on that particular person, found some DNA evidence and found an exact match, right? So obviously that's something that is actually used for, perhaps you would say, justice. But now that basically means that even I could perhaps be actually tracked down through these means, and maybe if it falls in hands of private parties, then what happens?
So I smell some amount of ethics there.
Right,
I will
right.
come back to you, maybe. But before that, I would like to learn your take. And
So I don't come from a computing or a stats background. I can barely operate Excel, but I deal with I deal with a lot of data. My take on business intelligence is that it's as old as business itself. Paul Julius Reuters. I mean, we all know Reuters as a financial news service, but it's basically a financial news service. And as technology, as hardware has improved, the data collection capacity of human beings to store and all kinds of data and the loops that you can make out of it. Therefore, if you're not into it, then you're losing an advantage. And now today we have two things. One, we have bandwidth, so you're communicating at a rapid rate. You're communicating all kinds of things. You're not only communicating in bits and bytes, you're actually now communicating imaging. Okay. And you've got IoT, you're doing terrestrial sensing. I do climate data and I do a lot of agriculture, and we use a lot of sensor data, which is different from people putting up their own data. So this is objectively derived data sets. So you're sampling the earth in real time. Okay. And if you do that, so the biggest users of BI, if you really ask me, where everything becomes much more tangible, are defense, space, and security services. In the sense, I'll tell you, I know for sure that security services across the world are actually monitoring Twitter to find protests, where the next protest is going to be. Who is coming to that protest? What are the groups that are coming to that protest? Where do they do it? I use climate data to figure out, based on my automatic weather stations, real-time precipitation and yield, which village will be impacted by an oncoming drought. So, in the sense, the thing with technology is, for example, when a cloud came, everything was supposed to go to the cloud, but a lot of things are the way they used to be, but you start thinking about it differently. I think the same thing is happening to business intelligence right now, or BI, but the problem is, the monopolization of hardware and data creates a massive apartheid between ones who use it and against one whom it's going to be used. And that's, I think somebody else also, Mr. Batoda was saying, that the advantage of harnessing that information and what you can do with it is massive. And I think that's something, that disproportionate power is something that will make companies and will break companies.
great. Okay. Thank you. So, I mean, you said that defense, space, security are the three major areas you
Yes.
think where.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And you are working in, if I say the broadly, it's which one of this? If
I'm actually working on foliage detection. So, see, terrorist infiltration on Indo-Pak border, there's massive amount of foliage. Now that is an AI problem sitting at you because you can have drones, you can have a lot of security cameras, but how do you find somebody who's crossing the foliage at night?
So how is it?
Well, you have to have huge amount of imaging. You have to have massive drone surveillance. You have to have a lot of thermal. You have to have thermal. You have got optical imaging, and then you need to sample distortions. And you need to sample a distortion
To estimate infiltration?
to figure out if the infiltration is happening in real time, and you need to figure out which one is an animal and which one is a human being. Both have different patterns.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, how you evaluate it?
You need to work with the paramilitary forces, and that's why it's not there is no set solution to it. But you deploy something, then you see how it works, and you see what the feedback is, because as a company, you will not be given feedback as objectively as you would like it. But it's happening.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you. Next, we would like to know more about what's happening in the exchanges.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me start. I don't know how many of you know that a Nobel Prize was given to a person who says, I don't know. Not only that, he says, I don't know, but you will also not know. And I'm talking of Heisenberg. From days or decades or centuries, people have been trying to find out how do you predict. Business intelligence is nothing but prediction. We had less number of tools, we had less number of ways to measure it. Now we've got more ways and tools to measure. Unfortunately, everyone who puts money in it, everyone wants to sell this intelligence. They only look at it from the point of view of control, how to stop you from thinking other than the way I want to think you to think. If we look at freedom, which most of the institutes here are, researchers are here, or when we do weather-related forecasting, etc., that's all right. But this intelligence has a negative side too. I come from the business, so let me talk the business side. We've always been wanting to see how we can sell more and more to people. Business intelligence is a tool which has been so nicely turned up today that you can actually find out when someone will buy a particular thing or not buy. The problem with it is, as Sam Pitrouzis also said, Indians are too diverse. We are not homogeneous. In fact, the world is trying to make us homogeneous. You know, almost everyone is on WhatsApp. Everyone wants 100% market share. That's not the way we should be. Business intelligence kills diversity by making sure that you predict. Why should a person not have different thoughts, for instance? Why should a person not have protests? As long as they don't harm, they don't kill, they don't maim, messages should not be shot. If tomorrow someone, like for instance, we talk about lynching. Let's look at business intelligence in lynching due to, people are kidnapping children. It is very easy to understand that lynching happens in one location. WhatsApp is a messenger which can be used all across the world today at the same time. Do you think really WhatsApp played a big role? I don't think. I would have just called, Mr. Ganesh or Mr. So-and-so, please come together, let's sit. They have their own language, that must have happened. No one thinks about it. Only WhatsApp did what the papers were doing. They just showed a photograph or they said some gang is like that. So business intelligence, why I'm coming here is, there are tools today to find out what you do on Facebook, on internet, etc. But let me tell you, if you're not connected, if you don't have a mobile number, you don't go to the internet, it's almost impossible to catch you. So what the government does, or what the sovereigns do, or what companies do is, they try to make you come to digital whether you like it or not. No company in the world, let me tell you, no company which is oriented towards profits does something so that it benefits you. It does something so that they can make money. And as Dr. Pitroda was saying, people don't want to pay the price. In business, it's very clear. If this bottle is made and it is sold for 10 rupees and people are buying, but people don't want to buy at 20 rupees, you better make it below 10. If it is not below 10, you will not sell. How did the West develop so many products, including, say, Google, for instance, we are talking of AI and ML, and they sold? Because everyone gives it at a very low introductory price. I am from the exchange. I have developed so many products. We gave it at a price where people would first use. Once they use, sample, they find the utility, then they pay. We in India want to have the money in upfront. That is not going to happen.
Okay, so you said that, I mean, first there will be free samples, and like the British people started introducing tea in this country. I was told some stories.
I'll give you an example. I
Yeah.
travel in Mumbai train sometimes, once in a year or whatever. They've introduced that just 100 meters away or 50 meters, there will be a kiosk where you can buy a ticket. The ticket is worth 5 rupees. They want to take 1 rupee extra charge and they want to buy it 6 rupees. I don't know why.
Ah.
Why would anyone pay? So that kind of stuff is what I'm worried about. Business intelligence should be free for people to use. It should be paid for by organizations which make money out of it.
Okay, so then basically that answers one question. Actually the question that I put to Mr. Pitroda, that should you say, I mean, to the newcomers, to the startups, those who are actually thinking to build something around business intelligence, I mean, tools. Yeah.
We have a startup zone at BSE. More than 200 companies normally come and we work with them. I personally mentor lots of startups. Startup companies are a risk a person takes. It's like if I started Infosys long back, someone took a risk, they invested money. Then after a few months or years, they got the first client and they made
But
money.
it has to be calculated risk.
It has to
It shouldn't
go
be
through-
too risky if there is really no buyer or absolutely free.
Out of 10 companies, 9 fail, sir.
True.
Which ones will fail, we don't know. When everyone fights, that one will succeed. It's the same in conception. In reproduction,
No, that is
millions
fine.
of sperms may be vying, but there's only one person who will win. That is the way the world is.
No, true. You're very right. But my concern is that as we were discussing, that there are not enough buyers who can give the right price. What's your take?
I don't agree. Jatin, you can tell
So
there are enough buyers.
I think it is not the startups that need to worry. It is the big companies that need to worry, because
Why?
startups are inherently digital in their framework. Okay, it's actually a very small risk that is being taken. Big banks, big companies, big data. Look at newspapers and television. They got digitized to kingdom come. I mean, look at the state of the media today. There's just no revenue to be made through advertising or subscription anymore. How did that happen? And Google stole all the advertising subscription. So startups are the ones that will survive. Because see, one, inherently a small company has less politics in it also. It can switch strategies fairly quickly. A
Right.
big company, any big establishment
Lot of
has
bureaucracies.
massive vested interest. People who are in their 40s, with all due respect, I'm 40,
Yep.
okay, are inherently analog. We were born after. We have lived in a life where VHS, we have seen all of that.
Correct.
Okay, digital is simultaneous. You literally have to think digitally. For example, I'll tell you a simple example. Distribution and channel partners. So you talk to somebody who's an FMCG and he'll talk about shops, kiosks, channel partner, distribution commissions. You talk to somebody who comes from a digital distribution background, he'll talk about tie-ups.
Yeah.
So that whole cost of distribution just crashes.
Yeah.
These are two different universes. Products do get delivered. That's the reason why Sears is shutting down. I could have never imagined. Toys R Us shut down. These are all big companies that got smashed by startups. Those are the ones that need to worry. Startups will fold, combine, they're like a virus. They don't have size. So I think I would like to flip it around. Our big companies.
So the scenario is quite promising for the startups.
Oh, absolutely.
But not really for the big ones.
No, it's like, you are so used to fighting with sticks and stones and swords, and you can't even imagine that there's a cannon looking at you and there's nothing you can do about it. Really, I've seen this. It's a digital frame of mind.
Ah, great. You made a very interesting point that BI kills diversity. I will come to Disha.
I don't think BI kills diversity, but it is we who decide what the BI should pick up, and we set the framework. So it's we who are trying to pull in everybody, like you're saying, in a certain framework. But at the end, I think the consumer is the king. So whoever you want to do, and we being the nation that we are, and we are highly diversified in all aspects, even a human is, right? So whatever you do, we are always evolving a step ahead. So how much ever you try to tighten the framework and get your customers, say, aligned to your requirements, or your sales force aligned to customers' requirement, there is always going to be something new that you have either not looked at or has evolved by the time you get used to the current scenario. So it will never kill diversity, I believe. never kill diversity. But yes, you will be a lot far, you may have walked a lot far from where you actually started and may have changed your course completely by now. Like we're saying, we have seen VHS and now we're into the digital framework, like he's saying. So we're going to move mountains now and a lot more quicker than what we used to do previously.
I just reply to that. Let me tell you, world over, people want market share. Today, a search engine means you think Google. Do you know 10 other search engines which anyone uses or anyone has market share more than 10%? No. Because of business intelligence, what's happened is whoever has that software and hardware, they can take over the market share. I'll give you an example. I was at the Google AI ML event, that is artificial intelligence and machine language learning. They showed a very simple way of any restaurant, for instance, making money out of the customers. You give a dish, say normal thali to someone. The Google cameras will pick up what the things are in the dish. What you eat, they'll understand. They already have your name, number, because of the imaging. They can take your photograph and image. Every time you go to the restaurant, they know what you liked without knowing the name maybe also. They will know the names, everything. But they will give you a thali which has those things. You are addicted. You will never try a Karela, for instance, first time in your life, not like it the first time. After 10 times you might like. They will never allow you to do. For instance, SkyMet, it predicts weather. You get so used to it, you don't want to even look at the sky and say, oh, are there clouds? You want to see SkyMet. I tell you, out of 200 people here, half of them must have opened Google Maps to find out how much time will I take to reach here. It's killing diversity. I remember the day when I used to say, okay, I'll call my friend and ask in Andheri, is there a traffic jam on the signal there? At least I had a chance to talk. Technology will allow you to do what you want. You have to decide what you want to do or not. There are people who don't want to do some things. There are people who want to put fake profiles on Facebook. There are people who don't want to use a single phone for everything. They want to talk to their girlfriends or boyfriends on a different phone. But the office sees everything. In fact, the OTP, passwords for instance. In my office, we've got 200 cameras. Sometime or the other, you will put your password on your phone. We can find out what your password is just by looking at the CCTV cameras. If I want your fingerprint, it's available everywhere. Biometrics are just flying around. This is business intelligence which people love to use. The artificial intelligence and machine language, you will cease to be a person. You will just be one human being or an animal. Because I'm sure someday they will find out what rats sit in your house and so find out whether you are a vegetarian or non-vegetarian. Business intelligence is humongous. Today in exchanges, for instance, I used to head research department for a few years. We used to find out which city, which people, and we have every detail of every person, like PAN number, the bank account, etc., how much money he puts in the bank, how much he takes out. We could find out where is the market share going, how do you propose the other 30, 15 cities to come up, etc. All this is through business intelligence. We have a huge data warehouse. We have crores of transactions every day, which we use it to our purpose. But since we are a regulated company, we use it in a regulated space, it's all right. But imagine marketing companies. Omni-channel marketing is the day. They know my daughter likes black and white stripes. I open Mantra on a phone and she only gets such kind of stuff. And of course, the companies want to sell some new products of theirs, which are high margin, so they'll show those. But business intelligence is huge. As he rightly said, startup companies have a great advantage. There are lots of people who support this, unlike what Dr. Pitroda feels, because the amount they require is a few lakhs, 10, 20 lakhs. And you get lots of big stake. So if they succeed, it's a huge money. So if my advice would be, anyone working in business intelligence, if they really are sold out on the idea and the way they work, go ahead, invest in that company. Out of 10, even if one succeeds, you will make so much money that you will never have to work again for money. Thank you.
Great. It's really very important that you mention. But again, I'll stick back to this. There's that business intelligence comes at the cost of diversity. And that's also intrusion to privacy. Personal space doesn't exist anymore. And you can certainly know that how many special characters are there in my password. In future, maybe the national food of India will be Chinese. Shukiran, I mean, may I know, your take on this?
Well, there is this saying that privacy and digitization, they're incompatible. the sooner we accept it, it's better. That's the only thing I can say. I cannot imagine any system where, without giving any data, it can give you a higher quality service than what it is giving today. That's why it's not possible. Yes, it's bound to happen. We have to accept it, we have to live with it.
In fact, I would like to add one more point. If business intelligence is so good, as Dr. Pitroda said rightly, why does the Municipal Corporation of Greater Bombay not use it to predict where the potholes come and take care of it? Why can't they predict, like SkyMed does sometimes, okay, this is going to be heavy rain, so we will stop school children from going to school. Those kind of things should be more used, and people will really love business intelligence for those reasons.
Yeah, in
Sir,
fact,
have
the
you
way
been
we
to,
are...
sorry,
I'm sorry.
this is a, sorry.
Finish
wanna-
off your point.
Have you been to MCGM? Through the BMC? Okay, then you know.
I think there is already a panel dedicated on AI for business, which is where they're going to talk about all these predictive things and the other things associated with that. If I just think of, I think the term that I used was this trust. And in a way, I wanted to sort of draw the conversation towards quality. Now, the moment you say that, why don't you do this, why don't you do this, where we might actually get things wrong, we'll try to put everything through AI, machine learning, and all those things. I'm not sure if we have achieved a level which is very, very accurate. In the process, we may end up actually losing the trust. It has to be very high quality, and we have to do it very, very carefully. I know there are a lot of, let's say, sentiment analysis or a lot of text mining happening, a lot of imagery data. Even the example that I can take from the example that you have given, let's say infiltration that you're looking at, or for that matter, we actually look at financial crime alerting system. And I have seen the users losing actually trust the moment you have very high false positive. Okay? And we have to make sure that what we are trying to solve for, and if by solving that and giving it back to the user, if it's eventually generating more trust on the overall BI and this journey that we are talking about.
So yes, I mean, certainly this is a very important point, this trust factor. But this trust factor is for the software, trusting the software. And it seems there is an ethical divide. Like what I got,
Yeah, I just want to clarify. When I say trust, trust is not just about a data breach or compromise. I said trust because of the quality of what you're getting.
Right, so reliability. So how much I can depend on your prediction? So descriptive statistics plus embedded AI and some other new things, so that how likely it will really rain now.
And that's where possibly the uses of data science is coming in, right? Data science is actually putting the science behind. If the BI system is making some inference and prediction, at least you have a strong foundation of data science to make sure that it's not spurious. You have some quality check embedded in the process of generating what is being generated. If it's a prediction, people know that it's a prediction based on some sound techniques, industry tested, industry stalwarts know about it, the technical stalwarts know about it. So that's how it can be ensured. And that's why it's very important that we just don't end up doing BI without having that underlying base very, very well covered.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's very important, certainly. But I got to know just now, there is something called good AI and there is something, good BI and bad BI. And I see clear there is an ethical divide. Maybe I will...
Okay, so I will actually share a couple of stories here, right? I mean, so I think, and most of these come perhaps from the US context, but perhaps are relatable by us, right? So one of the things is that in 2012, the retail company Target, I think like many of us probably have been consumers of that particular thing. Now, what happened was that Target started sending a teenage girl in Minnesota certain, like products which are related to pregnancy, right? Now, like some coupons and things like that, and then, like the father gets extremely angry and shows up at the, like closest Target store at Minneapolis, grabs the, like store manager and says that, what are you doing? I mean, like, why are you sending a teenage girl, like things related to pregnancy? Do you want to encourage her to actually get pregnant? The manager doesn't know what to say. He actually sees that the addresses are indeed to that particular person. and at that particular address, and therefore just apologizes and lets the matter go. A couple of weeks later, feels that that's not quite enough, so he actually calls up the gentleman and basically says that, look, we are very sorry that this actually happened, but then by that time the gentleman has mellowed down quite a bit, saying that, well, I was not quite aware of certain things happening in our family, so my daughter is due in August. So this is a case where the company, through certain search activities, right, that this lady was continuously searching for cotton balls, I think certain other things that they figured out was highly correlated with, pregnancy, right? And then obviously the search pattern, as they change, they can probably predict how closer they are to pregnancy. And this is 2012. I'm not talking about something that's happening in 2018. Right? So obviously there is a lot of information that we are putting up, even though we anonymize, right? The amount of information, the search that we actually do identifies us, right? And I think Shukiran actually made a point that, well, let's give up on, privacy altogether, because see, how is that then? My question is this, though, with facial recognition, even if I am not on internet, as you were saying, or even though I don't have a phone number, the moment I step inside a store with all the cameras and everything, I can be identified. In fact, the Chinese in the Uyghur province, right, actually completely, controls. They actually give tickets for jaywalking based on that, right? So now, to what extent are we actually allowing ourselves, right? So obviously, there are great things that you can do. Today, I think BNI 3.0 basically means that things are highly contextualized and personalized. How can it be used for good? Just as Dr. Pitroda was saying, that, my genetics, my, body type, all of that can be used to actually be very, used for very proactive healthcare. I'm not going to be waiting to actually visit a doctor and then the doctor telling me that this is what you need to actually make changes for. So this is going to be far more, proactive, far more, finding out before any bad adverse event happens. So that's one good use for it, right? What is one bad use for it? Let's actually empower drones with facial recognition technology. I don't like you. I actually, with clinical precision, actually put a bullet to somebody's head, right? So that's also possible. So now, which way do we go?
Where will you put, in which basket, this software called, technology called Cambridge Analytica?
Oh, right. So that's the other part, right? So, yeah. So that's where, I think so that's where he was talking about, we are homogenizing everybody. I think what we are really doing is that we are partitioning people into very neat baskets, right? So what is Cambridge Analytica doing, if you think about this, right? They're finding out from the same kinds of things that leads a person to find out whether somebody is pregnant or not. They're actually getting all this information. Let's say they are actually using all the third-party APIs, right, that we unwittingly actually agree to share our information with. They're basically saying that, fine, this is what I am, and all those things with great quality of predictive analytics, as Shukiran is saying, can be, put together to say, this is my political belief. Now, when that actually has been determined, now the stage is set for actually setting very targeted messages, sometimes very false, right? But targeted messages to actually turn me into something that is far more hardcore in an ideological echo chamber to create, voting blocks. And that is what has happened, I believe. Sure, analytics has been there from Barack Obama's time when they were actually
but there is a very strong connection with the financial market, because they got a substantial data from the credit card companies to understand their buying patterns and investment patterns.
Precisely. So basically you have one set of data coming from one source, the other set of data coming from other sources. So think about our Aadhaar card thing, how much we have put up. Then they're combine that with, let's say our credit card information, and you have, you can pretty much know everything about me more so than I know about myself. So now, is that intelligence that can be used for somebody's good? Yes, sure. Amazon now is so good, right, that they can basically, so forget about the traditional demand curve that we teach in the market, right? Every demand curve is now individual, personalized. You can price discriminate all you want, right? And that is what I believe he was also talking about, that this is such a scalable technology that you do not really have a fixed size of a company. Always costs are coming down, right? So that actually generates monopoly at a very natural tendency, right? And can indeed kill competition, provided you become a winner, right? That obviously needs to be ascertained.
See, personally, I am involved in cybersecurity and identity theft. In fact, I was on one of the advisory panels of the Interpol World also. But more than that, let me tell you, I have no issue if a doctor treats me, checks me, and gets my details. My problem is doctors don't know where to keep the data and how to keep the data. Not only that, 90% of the time it's purposely because it is someone else's data, they don't care. My phone, I will care about, others people's, I will not care. GDPR is a good step in that direction, but governments don't like it. In fact, I don't want to promote any particular software, but why WhatsApp has become famous is because it encrypts on your phone. As long as the device is with you, no one can see your messages. Except, of course, they weaken the structure by giving you delete for others. That facility actually gives the leakage out. The governments don't like it. To catch one terrorist out of 1,000 or 1 lakh, they want to see all 1 lakh people's messages. And I don't mind even government seeing it. But it's not a government, is not a body, right? There are 100 people working for it. Imagine those 100 people misusing the data. I was working for a telecom company. I used to get messages from people who were friends. Okay, my spouse is likely to be, I am suspicious of my spouse. Can you give me this data? Or I am suspicious about my secretary or someone else or my political party person. And it's a big mess. Today in business intelligence, you can find out all that. Everything that you do can be found out, and it's very easy. You don't even have to go to companies like SkyMed today, as he said. There are startups. It's available for free. And for instance, Truecaller. You have a number, you can get a person's name. How many of you have tried the reverse way? You have a name, Shankar Jadhav. Find his mobile number. Have you tried? You will get it 99% of the time, you will get the same thing. Which is why I like things like Facebook or Gmail, because they allow you to have fake profiles. When you have a fake profile to do something important, you will actually be saving yourself. And that is the way one should do. Second part of business intelligence is,
So I just
actually
learned this.
technology should be cheaper and cheaper. If I was paying by cash, I have to go walk, give the cash may be, it may be forged, etc. But the payment companies charge you per transaction so huge. Yesterday I was at a seminar where I was saying the payment transaction charges should be so low that people will give it almost free, like Google has done. And now they make money. So I'll stop here, otherwise I will take lots of time, sir.
I mean, just I want to make a comment there. I mean, you said that, I mean, I just learned this merit of fake profiles. So I find a merit, yep. And just before I get into the next question, is there any merit of fake news as well? Targeted fake news?
It is, but see, human beings are very intelligent. You just imagine all these people vote for their MLAs and MPs. You think they are not intelligent to understand what is fake news?
Of course
and what
they
is
are.
not? Do you think they don't know to check how to check? You teach them how to check. It's like when I was in school, there's a joke going on. You know, I don't want to go to school because the teacher told me 2 plus 3 is 5 today, and yesterday she said 1 plus 4 is 5. You have to have that common intelligence. I believe Indians are very, very intelligent. They understand all this.
So fake news is not a threat
Fake
here.
news don't affect much. What happens is there is some person who tells them, let's use fake news as a bait, as a lever, and do something.
But fake profiles certainly protect us.
Profile?
Fake profiles.
Fake profiles should be allowed so that a person can keep his privacy. And as long as he's not doing illegal. See, Facebook, what will you do illegal? If you do, suppose Facebook, you and I are friends. We are friends.
Yeah.
A private personal conversation is all right. Why should I go and check there is a profile of
even
Mr.
some amount
Mazumdar
of lie?
and what is he said?
Even some amount of lie is also allowed?
Yes, it should. Human beings are made for that, sir.
Correct. I mean,
But the thing is that
White lies are allowed.
Yep.
there are AIs that are saying that it can detect lie.
Yeah.
So you can't even lie after some time.
Right.
I will talk about what he mentioned. See, business intelligence is nothing new. It's just developed faster and faster because processing power has increased, the sensor technology has increased. There is a business model, like for some, suppose you want to know the GDP growth likely for India next 3 years. You have a model, you know, economic model. Earlier, if you had 10 factors, your processing power used to get used up. Today, you can put 1,000,000 factors and still do. I come from a telecom background. In my IIT days, I used to make integrated circuits. To make an integrated circuit and see how it behaves, if I actually make an integrated circuit, it will take 2 months. But if I simulate it, and we had a supercomputer then, the world had only 2 supercomputers, one in US and one in IIT Bombay, it still used to take 3-4 days. Today, that same thing can be done in few minutes. And I believe weather predictions are still such a humongous task. It still takes days sometimes. But business intelligence is going to grow. You can't stop it. My only worry is that people should not take control, whether politicians, government, etc., etc. The moment someone takes control, our life is going to be mess. Like George Orwell's 1984. In fact, I will give advice like Minority Report is a movie, Lucy is a movie. One day, machines will take over the world. Because we will stop thinking, we will not develop our own software and hardware. There will be some mad people who will develop by own hand, but we will be controlled, even power, roads, everything.
And you also started forgetting a lot. We don't have much memory. Like I don't remember all the phone numbers that I used to remember 10 years back or maybe 20 years back.
Personally, I dial the mobile numbers of lots of people because I like to remember the number. Many people, not necessarily all the time. It's like during my school days when we used to study tables. Nowadays, school children don't like to study tables.
Yeah.
No, in a sense, very simple example is directions. You kind of Google, even if you know the way, to see if you want to get there 2 minutes earlier, right? You go to a new place, you don't care. You land up in middle of nowhere in the US, you switch on, you're driving. So your capacity for navigation is gone. Your pattern recognition, your intuitiveness. It's like switching from a stick shift to an automatic to a self-driven.
So basically, you're trying to make the point that BI not only kills diversity, but also it is killing a lot of human faculties.
Of course, because you don't skill yourself. It's done, it's free. See, how does a person develop in a desperate need to skill yourself to do something you can't do? Now everything is automated, so it's happening, right? I'll tell you, phone number spellings. Why do I need to remember a spelling? Spell check will take care of it. So, or
Sometimes that actually takes care of in a rather embarrassing way. So I think that's
or operating Excel sheets. So many things are inbuilt. Macros are inbuilt. What are you doing? Even programming. I mean, I've seen programming when it was character based. To now people just putting frameworks together and executing them. So I don't know really I think it's going to change human physiology in many ways. I mean,
But they say that humans will not exist the way we exist after some time, maybe a decade or rather 10 decades longer. We'll just be some Atma type. We will not have a body. We will have something and we will say this is what it is. The movies like Surrogates or Minority Report is what you have to think. But the only problem I always have with business intelligence is it predicts something. But remember, all predictions are probability based. You see a movie like Tomorrowland. They say 100% this is the time that planet Earth will stop and human beings will stop development. Don't believe in all these predictions because predictions are made based on some models and some assumptions. If these assumptions change, things change. And these assumptions to change, we have to develop ourselves. Imagine a day when we used to not have so much travel facilities, we used to walk. Today, my kid says, I've gone to the gym, I worked too much, so I cannot actually lift the badli from the bathroom to some other place. It's a bad science. Why do you have to do this? When I ask people to walk, there's no parking in our premises. People who are especially at the top level feel very bad, They say, we have to walk. So I think it will become a common thing where people will stop walking.
And that will change the human physiology a great
I
deal.
mean, imagine, you talk about how good is our... You talk to a child who goes to a village school in Netarat in Bihar, and his or her capacity to remember and memory and to calculate and run numbers. And you talk to, I shouldn't say this, but our kids who are perpetually digital. I mean, there is a loss of capability to deal with so much, real data without any tools. So I think it's happening.
So, I mean, scary.
It's very scary.
And the list is getting longer.
I'll also say the scariest part is we add almost 1 Australian full population every year to the job pool. And let me tell you, we are going to lose jobs like a hot cake.
Oh, that I can see.
You will have no jobs. You will have drones which deliver things at your place. Though logistics is a big thing today. You may not have jobs for people like us also. Because almost everything will be automated.
Yeah, I said drones. I mean, I feel like drones are far away. I mean, look at self-driving cars. Let self-driving cars, the first thing that is probably going to come is self-driven trucks for logistics. They will run like trains. So what are you going to do with all these truck drivers? And I'll give you another example. If you have trucks and cars that drive themselves, then you don't need a night halt at a hotel. That whole business is gone. It's all gone. I don't need to stop, or I just keep on sitting, you know. I mean, you can do 10-hour hauls without. This is just an example of how things are going to change. And Mr. Petroda was right. India, countries like India with large, vast populations, where anyway people are, rural India is underemployed. You go, I work in rural India, then most men and women, most women work, but men have nothing to do beyond the seasonal scale and little bit of labor here and there. What are we going to do? And even people like us, people who do intelligent jobs, are at even higher risk because our lifestyles are so expensive to maintain. So anyway, the poor guy was, you know, cutting paddy and living a laborer's life. But if there are codes that will code, or machines that will design or build, look at 3D printing. I've seen it. You know, the capacity to create at a moment's notice and innovation without going to a fab unit design. How many loops have just gone because you imagine, you draw, it's there. And this is, if you look, what is happening in the West is rather, I think that is the kind of reaction that will come. It's going to come here also. People are not understanding it. You know, the obsolescence is the key term. It's like they build railways and you don't need Ghoda Gadis anymore. So it's happening.
So yeah, I mean, I see there is a good mixture of people from industry and academia, and also, I mean, from both. So I just couldn't help to ask a question. As I mean, a lot of these concerns, cariness, and these things that we pointed out right now, do you really think all these things has been captured in a curriculum somewhere? Or I mean, how the industry is facing for the future people, I mean, who will be working in this industry? Will they come equipped with these issues already there, or just they will come with a fresh knowledge of learning Python and some differential equation and that's it?
Okay, I'd like to take
please,
it.
Yeah.
So, like they said, all of them agree that we're moving ahead, and you know what they're doing currently. Students are not being taught what we previously taught. No tables are being taught. Excel is now becoming redundant, and so on and so forth. So, but the curriculum today also changes that soon. People may think, no, we do not change, or we look at the redundant curriculum, but no, I think all colleges, including my peer NMIMS also, there is, apart from only academicians around in the industry, and that in the same industry, we also have a lot of corporate people coming in, and that's where we balance out the lot of academics with a lot of practical knowledge. So from everything from ethics, if they're learning Python, for example, when they're going to come into systems, learn those, but they will be also are being taught ethics, because you guys also come up with the concern that the student or the fresher who's coming in should know what ethics means. So we do not wait till they come into a situation and then understand the language or the problem, but we create simulations and we make sure that they understand the problems in advance and prep them in totality as much as possible, let's say that way, to encounter all these problems, at least in the first phase. And then as they pick on and as the life and experiences and corporate work pulls in, they mature and they come back to further movement.
So I think I will just perhaps add a couple of questions to this, right? I mean, like not necessarily offering any answers or anything, but do we really believe that, you know, like 50 years down the line, we will even need to know how to write? Because these days, like last, like this, what is this, MS, Microsoft software now offers me the opportunity to simply dictate. Like the last, that's what I found out, that when it just upgraded, it said that now I can apparently dictate and it can just simply write things down, right? Obviously, like you can use, when you are, like using your phone interface, you can search using voice, right? So, and obviously there are texts and all those kinds of things. So I don't know whether some of those skills that we are really talking about, I mean, what would it mean to become illiterate, number one? What are the skills that would be useful? Those are fascinating questions, in my opinion, for the future.
Yeah. But, just as thought experiment, extending that one, if you're saying that all the tasks that we are used to thinking of doing, they will be gone. I would try to ask this question, does that mean that we'll spend more time doing creative thing?
Very good. So I will just take that
I'll
as
give you an example. What? Simple example. 10 years ago, if someone would have told me there is a signal which is red, it's 2 o'clock in the night, you have to stop, an ethical person would have said, yes, I will stop. 5 years ago, people started asking, why can't they know that at 2 o'clock in the night, there'll be no one there and they should make the signal yellow blinking or whatever, stop and go. Today, I ask a question. Why can't my car talk to the signal and tell it, "Ki there's no one here, give me the grid signal so my car can go without stopping and reduce the energy and environment wastage?" You know, people take ethics to such a level, they think a law or a rule made 10 years back should be applicable as ethics today. For instance, many people don't eat in the evening. I go to some conferences like this. So dinner, many people don't eat much. They would rather go home and eat because that's the only meal that they do. There was one conference, and interesting, based on BI, what they did is they understood this. So they gave a choice when you register. Would you be really having dinner or soft drinks or hot drinks with us, or alcoholic drinks with us? And I was very happy. That is the way we should use business intelligence to reduce the cost, reduce this thing. And it was supposed to be registered 10 days back. We are not using business intelligence for that because that doesn't give us glamour. What glamorizes us is, okay, I'll do an audit of 500 bridges and this audit was done, this is done very well, yet this happened, so this prediction was wrong.
I would sort of pick up few points there. The car example that you are giving, I think there's some work happening to synchronize signal and the car, connected cars on the road. Agree with you, a lot of things are not happening. I think the discussion which I was really trying to understand from you, given that you are saying that we are painting a picture which is very, very gloomy, that what are you going to do? We are becoming more dumb and so on. But I'm trying to ask the other question. If all our manual tasks and the job that I do and I don't sort of find it interesting, that is being picked up by machine, wouldn't someone try to do something more creative? Would it make mankind more creative? That's the question I'm asking, and I just want to deliberate on that one. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think on that
Especially
note,
in India, and I'll tell you, I don't know how many of you read science fiction. If you read Isaac Asimov, there's a story written, he died long back, he's written the story before that. India is a caste-based society. Most of the menial tasks, and I'm not saying manual, I'm saying menial tasks, which could be performed by machines, the businessmen don't want it to be done that way. If you are talking about menial tasks, the people who lose jobs, I think they'll be better off with it. Today, the driver's son says, I don't want to be a driver. I want to be an engineer, doctor, etc. But does the engineer's doctor's son say, I want to be a driver? So the reason why the jobs are going to be a problematic and people are against reservation systems or whatever, intelligence systems, is because they are thinking they are taking my jobs. As long as they were not taking my jobs, people were happy. Business intelligence is going to kill people like me and my children's jobs, and hence I am upset with it. Otherwise, it would not be upset.
so on that note, basically, I would like all of you to just give me one adjective on your take after this discussion. I can say one adjective. My adjective is scary. What is coming in the top of your mind?
Creativity?
Yeah.
Exciting.
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty, you said.
Mine is getting as close to God as possible. I'm a very pious person.
Well, one word, right? Let's look, forward-looking. Let's just leave it
Hopeful.
Hopeful.
On that note, we all are hopeful, really, yeah. So let's thank again this esteemed panel for this wonderful discussion.